so first of all, how did Wintram originally start?
Well, thank you for asking me that question, because I did not even know the answer to this myself, but we find in the archives that Wintram was begun by Father Silvestri in 1974. He decided that all of our senior students should in fact have an opportunity to shadow people in professions, and this would help them with their choice of careers in the future. So this program has been going on since 1974, believe it or not, long before some of you were even born. Okay, so carry on, honey.
How did Wintram operate before COVID?
Right, Wintram was very, very different in the beginning. There was a lot more to be done. There were many more components. 3 research papers were required right at the very beginning, plus a personal essay. We still have the personal essay today. However, we've modified it so that it can be used as your college application essay now, and I think that sort of, double duty for one essay is a good thing. There also were a number of other assignments that were included that we have kind of let go. One of the big things was that you had to interview your mentor before you even asked or you set up your interview schedule. So that meant that you had to contact these people 3 times before you actually went on your visiting. Now, Wintram in the past has always been a out-of-school experience. You would go and shadow for 2, 3, maybe even 4 days, different professionals in a career that you might be interested in. So it meant that you were off campus, you were spending time with these professionals, and in the past a journal was required. Now, in recent years we have not required that journal. However, there were many more components in the past, and we've kind of simplified it quite a bit.
So COVID has changed many things, as you were stating before, but how did Wintram work this year with COVID, and how did you decide on that?
Okay, so this year, and I think it's still going to be something that you would be interested in, we were unable to go and actually visit on site. And so what we did was to change the venue a little bit by using Zoom meetings. So instead of going and visiting on 2 workplaces, we had our students visit by Zoom. Now, there were advantages and there were disadvantages to that, and I think that's your next question, isn't it?
Yes. Do you feel students received a meaningful experience this year?
I do. They still had to do the presentation at the end. Now, they had to visit 4 professionals by Zoom, and as far as I was concerned, because I had to view all of these Zooms, and I was very impressed. I was extremely impressed with the professionalism of our students and the kinds of professionals that they chose to meet. One of the things about being on site was that very often you never sat down with the professional and actually spoke to him. You would just follow that professional, and sometimes people would come back and they would say, well, I sat in a corner for the whole time and I didn't do anything. This way, with the Zoom, you had to go one-on-one, face-to-face with that professional, with prepared questions. And to me, I thought that that was a very in-depth and enlightening experience. I learned a lot about some professions that I didn't even know existed before, and so for me, it was very enriching. I think it was very enriching for some, but of course, we find out that some were not so happy.
Are there any aspects that you'll use in years to come from this year's Wintram experience?
Well, we're hoping, and the guidance department and myself, we're working together to see how we can enrich your visiting, because we're hoping that you will, in fact, next year be able to go off campus and that you will be able to actually shadow in person. So we're hoping that's going to happen. But the fact that these Zoom meetings were so intense and often ran even though they were only supposed to be 30 minutes. Sometimes they ran into an hour because people were so interested in the career and they wanted to know so much more. So we're thinking of ways in which we can incorporate both the face-to-face meetings and the on-site visitation. We're going to be working through that to see how we can perhaps work that in so that you can do both. Okay.
What were some challenges you faced this year because of COVID?
Well, as I said, that was the big challenge, that many of the students missed actually going out onto the sites where their professionals were working. And so that was a problem. People wanted to go. Mind you, some students took their cameras then and they went to the place of business. They were offered a chance to do that. They took their cameras and they sort of did a virtual tour of the workplace. And I don't know if that will work, but it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge for people. Okay.
Was there anything that worked out better than you expected it to?
Yes, the Zooms. The Zooms were really terrific, and I have to say that I think the students got a lot out of that Zoom experience. However, we'd like to be able to do sort of a blended experience so that you can do both, perhaps. We'll have to work it out. So.
And what are some of the positive effects that students get after doing the Zooms, or just winter in general?
I think one of the positive things that they found was that they were able to write their presentations in a lot of depth because they had so much information on the profession that their presentations were superb. Almost every presentation was worth 100. So I think that was a good thing because they really had that focus on that profession.
What was your personal favorite part of this year's Winterim?
I learned so much from those Zooms, I really did, but I think perhaps my favorite part was seeing everybody dressed professionally, coming in and then doing their presentations. That's always something that's very dear to my heart because I see the way in which my students have become so mature and are able to do those presentations, so that's always one of my favorite parts.
Okay, that concludes our questions. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm Julie Galing. I'm Director of Counseling at Bishop McGinnis, and my children went to Bishop McGinnis, so I have a pretty long history here. I'm Tiffany Emick. I am the other school counselor here at Bishop, and I have two students who are here at Bishop, and a niece who graduated last year from Bishop.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Now we're going to start with the questions about Winterim and the whole deal with COVID. So how did Winterim originally start?
Well, Winterim was in place when my daughter was here, so she graduated in 2007, and it was started with the English department in conjunction with the counseling center as an opportunity for students, seniors actually, to have hands-on experience with a job. And so when my daughter did it, she actually worked for a magazine called Bust Magazine. It was a feminist magazine in New York City. At that time, you could just do one placement, and since it's evolved into two placements.
That's lovely. How did Winterim operate before COVID?
So before COVID, there were two placements that students would do. So they would start the process early in the fall, and they would reach out to people who were, open to having a student join them over in January in their offices, so in their businesses. So we had two placements, and there was some background work done, some research done, and then eventually students would spend almost a week-long time between the two of those people, and be able to get into the office or the operating room, or on the behind the scenes in the business, or all different types of stuff.
That is great. So I know that you were working with Mrs. Rafferty to be able to have Winterim this year. So how did this work this year with COVID, and how did you decide on what will happen with that?
So it was an evolving process because we knew that the opportunity wouldn't take place for in-person, right? So we tried to figure out a system that you as seniors could have the opportunity to just learn about different careers, plus have the experience of talking to an adult that's not your parent or not a teacher. So you had that experience. So it evolved to do 4 beginning September, so that you would have all the placements done actually by Christmas break, and then have no exams for seniors, which we knew was really important to you all also, and have that opportunity to come in that week to do your presentation. So the format changed in some ways, but in some ways it didn't.
Do you feel students received a meaningful experience this year?
Students, do they receive a meaningful experience
Yeah.
this year? That's okay. I do. I think they certainly did miss the hands-on getting in the building, and getting to be in person. However, we got a lot of feedback from seniors who said, you know, it was really nice to have one-on-one interviews with multiple people. So because it was 4, not 2. And the time that they did get to spend with them, either over Zoom or in person, actually gave them a lot of time to really, you know, one-on-one, and got to go a little bit deeper. And sometimes when you're at a interim and you're shadowing someone and they've got all of their work to do and they don't have a lot of uninterrupted time to spend. And so they found that it was very interesting, and they liked that they could do 4 things of it too. And I think too, when we were listening to the presentations that you all did in Resick, and I heard quite a few between the 2 of us, and mostly fairly consistent, that part that says, what would you like and what would you suggest? Most of you said we'd like a hybrid. So maybe have the Zoom, you know, for the interviewing process, and then the in-person. So we're in the process now of thinking about what it's going to look like next year.
That is great to know. What are some of the positives from this year's Wintrum that you saw when you were looking at everyone's presentations?
Oh my gosh. I love the fact, you know, everybody, I remember from my own daughter, she cried when she had to call and order a pizza, you know, like, please don't make me do it. And all of you all were fairly hesitant about that initial Zoom, or will I be able to talk that long with somebody, what will I talk about? And all the presentations, and jump into some, because I feel like y'all really got a lot out of them, some more than others. And so you also learn that people in the business world, some of them are shy, and some of them are not maybe good conversationalists, so you had to carry the load of it. I think that's invaluable.
It's also nice to see all of the seniors being able to dress outside of their uniform and, you know, show their true personalities when they're presenting, and their little anecdotes that they had are always funny. And you know, when we're on the panel listening, that's what we want. We want to hear all the, you know, the funny little things that people say and admit. And I think sometimes our seniors are shocked how honest people are that they're interviewing, and how when they're one-on-one they can speak freely about how they really feel about their job and what they like and don't like.
I noticed that too, how people are very honest, like, and then like, yeah.
Which is good.
It is
That's what
good.
it's all about, right?
I mean, you're not gonna love your job. Not everyone loves it. You mostly just deal with it, like.
That's right.
Are there any aspects that you will use in your year to come, like years to come in the future?
Yeah, and in fact, we are meeting with the English department, and it looks like next year we're going to have a change in semester, and the diocese is leaning towards finishing everything up in December, so that everybody can have that true mental break over Christmas. Sorry, y'all don't get to do that. But that would mean that Wintrum might look entirely different. And so what we're thinking of doing is putting together a survey, like if there's something that you provide input from you all that's not in front of everybody, but one-on-one and confidential, to see how you all think it would evolve with. Yeah.
And I also think that, you know, moving forward with all of those changes, you know, maybe maybe we started a little earlier, and maybe, we have some of those Zoom calls with maybe junior year, and then we do some longer internships with like a finishing project towards the spring, where you spend maybe a week with someone after you've done Zooms, before to really hone down who you'd like to be with. So, there's lots of opportunities, for improvement, and, taking what worked and growing on that. Do you all think it's practical?
Definitely.
Yeah,
yes.
it was.
I'm really glad we got to experience it, because it really helped me realize what jobs I really would love to go into, and then maybe some other ones that I wouldn't have known that I wouldn't have liked as much. So I'm glad I got to experience it.
It also helped us learn how to have like a professional conversation and not have someone talk to you like you're a kid.
I just found it interesting. Like the jobs I did, I didn't really like, but like radiology, for example, I didn't really know what it was. Or computer science, like I know what it was, but I didn't really know what it was. And I found it very interesting. Like, and then the like stories on how they wanted to become one. I just found that fascinating.
Yeah, because you have this idea about a job, but actually, like Ms. Emig said, hearing the dirty details and what you said, you don't really know until you have that conversation. And this is probably the first time you had like a sit down with an adult, other than Ms. Emig and myself, that you feel like, yeah, this is a grown-up conversation.
Yeah.
That is true. So for our next question, what were some of the negative or challenges this year because of COVID?
Well, first and foremost, the fact that we couldn't get y'all into the business setting and into the, professional setting. That was, we were really worried that it wouldn't be meaningful if we hadn't done that. And plus, we get to, the masks has made everything hard, and all of the protocols that have had to put in place kind of, affects everything. Some students kept their masks on when they presented, and, if you think presenting is hard in general, then presenting with a mask on, and you've got to worry about that, and, so all of that really, all kind of played in together. So that kind of stunk a little bit about not being able to have you all go into the businesses. But, hopefully some of you all had made some connections with people who, if you really were interested in them, they would let you come back at a later date when things opened up. And you still have made, you've still networked, and you still have people that you can reach out to if you should ever need a summer job or an internship when you're in college and you come back home. So those are still valuable.
And I think the whole mind change that y'all were set with, because for so many years you had the expectation of winter looking a certain way, and come the middle of September, you're like, holy cow, what do we have to do and when? And this is never gonna happen, and I don't know how to go. So you learned, it was hard, but you learned a valuable lesson that you just did it in chunks. By the time you did that fourth Zoom, I'm assuming you felt pretty comfortable with the questions and the format. And so that was a real challenge for you all, because the wheel was invented with you, essentially, during that period of time, and it was scary.
Was there anything that worked about better than expected? Okay, let me rephrase that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I think everything worked better than our expectation was just like a minimal, opportunity, but just get in there, and I think overall, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. I think Mrs. Rafferty particularly was extremely nervous about it being different, and I think she was so impressed and made a point to tell us on a number of occasions how much she enjoyed watching the Zooms, how she could watch what actually, because she can't go out and watch you guys when you're off campus, but she was able to see you all interact with professionals and what everybody learned about, and she was so impressed with you all and how professional you were, and also she learned a lot about different careers that are out there too, and so she really enjoyed it. So that was something I think, for her, kind of in charge of you all in that, now we'll
was so excited. She
She
came
really
in on
was.
like Monday. I watched Zooms all weekend, and I'm so sick of it.
Yeah.
We really did enjoy it, and I'm really glad that we still were able to have a winter experience despite everything happening around with COVID, so I'm very thankful for that. And for our last question, what has been your favorite part about Wintrum as a whole?
Oh, without a doubt, watching y'all do your things.
Oh.
It's so, because we see you come in as freshmen, right? And it's just, oh no. It's awesome.
It's nice to see how how over 4 years, how much you've grown and matured and are able to really, I mean, it's almost like you can start to envision them out working and being, out of the, even though you're going to college, you're adults. I mean, you're 18 plus, years old, most of you, and it's, and it also makes us feel a little bit good that we were part of that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Julia Pepe. I'm Clarice Fahrenkrug. I'm Nicole Hill. I'm Kreuter.
Hi, did you guys like your winter experience this year?
So I don't really like interviewing. I think I would have liked it better if we could have done in person and like work experience and like hands-on. But it was good because we had COVID. I personally enjoyed the Zoom calls. I thought it was a great way to just get to know your professionals more. And yeah, that's it. I definitely have to agree with Clarice. I'm really thankful that I got the experience to learn more about occupations that I've always been interested in.
I did like doing the Zoom calls this year. I feel like we got to like have more of a like personal relationship with our like professional this year than last year.
I completely agree. What were some challenges you guys faced this year?
Finding people that want to meet and like, I don't know, I just can't really have the people that I like to do it. But since it was more of a new thing that we were doing, it was hard for like us to find the deadlines that we had to do and just get it done and like in that compressed period of time. But besides that, it was okay. I do agree with that. It was a little bit difficult to find time to do it because deadlines came up so fast, but I also think that it was a little bit difficult scheduling things with the people that we were shadowing because they were very busy during the time of COVID and it was all new to them as well.
I also had like a hard time finding people because a lot of people I wanted to interview worked with like as a nurse or a doctor, and they were like working with the COVID situation, so they didn't have time to interview. So yeah.
Did you guys find this experience meaningful still, even without in person?
I definitely did find some of the people meaningful in the stories and how they wanted to become, like what the career is, and basically how they want to become. So for me, I thought it was very meaningful in learning more about the professionals, and I actually got to learn more about what they do in their day-to-day lives, and it helped me figure out what I want to do personally. I think that it was very helpful as well, not only to learn more about their occupations, but to also have a conversation with them, and they were very open and honest about their job and what it's really like to work there.
I agree with that. I think it was like helpful, like the Zoom call was very helpful because we got to like see their personality more and like how their personality fits their job, and that was very nice to see.
Do you think that they should keep some aspects of this year's Winterim into next year's?
I think they should. I think they should do the interview before the internship kind of thing, the mentorship. So then they can like ease up the person and pick like, so you should do 4 people for interviewing and then pick 2 people for the internship thing. Yeah, I agree with Julia. Having a Zoom call with the professionals, I feel like would let you get to know them more because in the past people have just gone to their professionals' work
Thank you for answering these questions today. That's all.